How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
I'll tell you, you're on one heck of a journey with this book because this is one that it's not paparazzi, it's not TMZ, it's not the National Enquirer. You're saying, can we just have a conversation here? There's some stuff that's been going on and it just needs to be talked about.
I'm so glad you said that because I think in so many instances in my book, you know, as I say that there's the 800-word version of this story that would be a hit piece. And I'm trying not to do that because I don't know that what that gets us. We need to talk about not just what happened, but why it keeps happening. And I'm trying to lay out the patterns that and the mindsets. Sometimes people have mindsets they're not even aware that they have. Yeah. They have attitudes they're not aware that they absorbed. And you know, some people are just frankly abusive or narcissistic and don't care how they affect others, and that's a problem for sure. But others, when they are told, hey, we can't do this anymore, try to be part of the change. And I wanted partly to shed light on the people who came up oftentimes in systems or workplaces that were horrendous. And they said, no, I'm not going to do that. I want to be better than that. And those people are creating a revolution. And I wanted to shed some light on that too.
And there's when you do stuff like that, when you start making change and start, unveiling things, I can't imagine the hearts of those that have spoken out, because all of a sudden those people they once thought were friends, not so much anymore because the truth is coming out.
Absolutely. But it's funny. I just talked to someone who came forward yesterday. I don't want to say who it was, but I've talked to so many people who came forward about abusive or unprofessional or, frankly, awful situations. And they've wondered, will I be ending my career?
Yep.
And so they are taking that risk. I do think that risk is still real. It's wonderful. And on my dark days, it really gives me hope. But when I've talked to people, what I've found is, it did sever some connections. It did end some relationships, but it's kind of like my grandmother said, when, God closes a door, he opens a window. So, but they found other connections with people who are trying to make the change real and permanent and lasting. And that's been, a fulfilling thing for them to go through as well.
When you break the cycle, does that interrupt the cash flow? Because Hollywood is all about that cash.
Interesting. I'm so glad you asked that. I think it actually increases the cash flow. Nice. And one example that I cite, first of all, I had Evan Rachel Wood says in my book, the actor and producer and musician, she says, when you don't have to pay for damage control of all kinds, you're saving on the budget. I have known about so many productions where chaotic and abusive people caused so many problems that the set had to be rebuilt, or, they couldn't work that day because the costumes weren't right, because this person just said, throw everything out. It costs money to employ people. And when there's a high turnover and nobody knows what they're doing and you're hiring a fresh crew or new employees every day, that creates a cost. And on top of that, I've known many industry professionals that I'll give you an example of a great person who I've known for 30 years, Vince Gilligan. A lot of people work for Vince in his shows Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul for years and years on end. And, they're well treated. I think they're well paid. But there's a value that's added when people have worked together for a long time and have a shorthand and can get things done more efficiently. And here's another rock solid example I'll offer to you. There's a woman named Linda Shue Taylor who came up in some pretty terrible work environments oftentimes, and now she's leading television shows and hiring people. She showed me an email that she sends to people about norms, expectations, the work culture, the transparency and accountability and responsibility and kindness that she tries to embody. And according to everything I know, she does embody. She said, we offered this person less money than another studio who had a competing offer. But this person thought that the workplace sounded so good that they wanted to come work for me. And so you really save money by not having chaotic people where you have to sign NDAs and pay people off, other costs that are just all over the place. Yeah.
And you're right about that evolution that we're going through right now, because it's like people want to protect their art, their heart. They want to protect everything, because we had a moment there for a couple of years where we got to stop and rethink our path. What is it really all about? Well, let's just go out there and entertain people, but let's do it in a friendly, professional manner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's a huge part of it. There can be negative sides to social media. We know all of that. But I think you've hit upon a really, really great point, because I do not think that consumers want to consume entertainment or enjoy entertainment where people were being systematically harmed to make that entertainment. And I'm not talking about somebody having a bad day. That's not the kind of reporting that I do. Everybody has a bad day. Like, we all have our moments where we lose our temper, say something we will regret. Human beings are going to be human beings. That's just how we are built. This is not about someone making a mistake at all. This is about systematic patterns of harassment, harm, verbal abuse, even being physically inappropriate. This is about patterns of that, and those patterns and toxic norms, if you will, being ignored, being celebrated as, well, that's how this person, they just have to work that way. No, they don't have to do that. I don't think consumers want it. And one thing that's happened in recent years is that between Me Too reporting, other kind of reporting on difficult or bad environments for a number of reasons in Hollywood, people have an understanding that it's not as glamorous as they thought. And I firmly believe, I live out here in the Midwest. I don't live in LA or New York. I love going there, but I don't think anybody wants to consume entertainment where these kinds of harms were being routinely occurring. That they want. There's no, because I think just, me walking down the street in my town out here outside Chicago, no one's saying, gosh, if on that film set, if there weren't abusive people, that film wouldn't have been as good. Nobody thinks that. It's just like, that's just insane. And we can talk about it and talk about how to make it better. And we do have to have these difficult conversations that are not just a hit piece. They're not just a flash in the pan piece of scandal reporting. But okay, how do we change the norms, change the standards?
Being someone who consumes a lot of TV because I need the content for what it is that I do, the moment that I hear something bad has happened on a set, that poisons me as a viewer. I mean, it really does. And I try to be forgiving and understanding and try to get the full story and stuff. But I mean, I could sit here and, just going right down your list that you have in this book of the shows that have been damaged by it. You're right. It just gets inside my heart, and it's tough for me to return.
I agree with you. And what's heartbreaking is that a lot of times what I hear about is that, the set is harmonious. The people get along. They're working hard. They're collaborating. They're even having a conflict or disagreement in an appropriate manner. But there's one person, there's one person who's just spoiling it. And I cannot tell you the number of times where people came forward, and this is like heroic stuff. All the stuff that you see on the screen about the little guy going up against the forces of evil. I've seen this happen again and again. I did a story a few years ago about, among other shows, a television show named MacGyver.
Yeah.
And the lead actor, Lucas Till, who I got to know pretty well. I mean, what came out was that he was enduring toxic and unprofessional behavior that really negatively affected his mental health and his life and even his willingness to continue. He said to me, Mo, I don't care if this ends my career because I don't want this kind of career. I don't want this feeling, But what got him to come forward, and this has happened so many times, and if anyone ever thinks, oh, it's just dog eat dog in Hollywood and everyone's heartless, I want you to hear this. Lucas came forward because of how his colleagues were being treated. That's what tipped him over the line. That's what broke him. And there was one colleague in the cast in particular who he just said, I cannot endure this anymore. And it wasn't just allegations about the person who was in charge of that show. It was about some of the key people that he kind of put in key positions on that set. The show filmed in Georgia. And, the toxicity that emanated from those few people. And it's just, we can't let people like that ruin it for everyone, because I do think that the majority of people just want to do their jobs, do them well, maybe have some good times along the way, and then go home and eat dinner and hang out with their families. Like, it's no one's asking for the moon or the stars or to never have any difficulties. Hollywood's a pretty brutal industry. People understand there's going to be difficulties and obstacles, but I think the majority of people within it, and that's why I have over 150 sources, the majority of people in it want to treat each other well, want to have a good work environment. But for too long, the people at the very top turned a blind eye to abusive or unprofessional or unacceptable behavior because they thought, oh, well, we need that star. We have to have that star on set. And I'm like, there are a lot of good actors. I don't get it. You know, why defend this person when they've been given a chance to change and they won't?
Yeah. You talk about the abusers and how abusers are created. I've always believed inside my heart that if you are abused, there's a big chance you will become the one that abuses. Do you believe in that theory as well?
Era, I believe that so much. You know, hurt people is the saying, I guess. You know? And there's a tragic side to this. And the tragic side is that people see negative, terrible examples. They see, like, my whole thing is, I understand that especially creative people in any field, you know, music, dance, acting, perhaps radio, I don't know, people bring baggage to the table. Creative people have a lot. I mean, you know, I have my own set of neuroses and insecurities. My thing is not, oh, everyone should be perfect and a great person and everyone's fine. It's taking those frustrations or difficulties out on your colleagues. Yeah. Having that and being rewarded for that because, you know, people above you in the food chain are saying that's great. That's how art is created. That's how stories are told. Here's what I think, and I say this several times in the book. If you're consistently treating people in a harmful, inappropriate, dangerous manner, that's a choice. And I think what I want to burn down, hence the title, is people treat, you know, difficult or unprofessional or abusive behavior on sets and in Hollywood in general as inevitable. It's not inevitable. I do think that people that came up with bad examples often adopt those terrible examples, and that's unfortunate. But that's where the companies and the people with power and the executives who can stop that have to step in and enforce meaningful boundaries and consequences. Because, if people have a lot going on, have a lot of baggage, saw terrible examples, saw their colleagues getting rewarded for terrible examples, they might adopt that behavior and go down that path. That doesn't mean that path is okay. And I do believe, I wrote about in my book an actor who was fired from a production for continual harassment. And the first option was, hey, we want to help educate you. And obviously, like, we've all been through Me Too. This was not 50 years ago. This was, he should have known better. Let's just put it that way. I think most human beings, most adults walking the earth know better. But they gave him the option, like, look, this is a problem. You can't do this. We'll give you education. We'll support you to not do this and to do better, but just understand you can't act that way. And he was dismissive, would not stop, was given, within a relatively tight time frame, was given the opportunity to change his behavior. Again, an active choice not to do so, and then he was fired. And because I do think at some point you have to, there are clinical narcissists, there are abusers who like hurting people, and that's a hard truth, and I don't like that truth, and I don't even like thinking about it, let alone saying it. But there are those people that I do think need to be removed from the ecosystem, so to speak, because they are poisoning everything and will not change and have been given 1,000,001. The big producer, Scott Rudin, the first pieces about how he had changed and was a different man came out 20 years ago. He never, those pieces were not accurate. He never changed. So, all right, some people don't get more chances. Let's have a system by which people engaging in negative behavior, first of all, the people affected have recourse. They have a way to make people aware of it. They have a way to talk about it, bring it to people's attention without putting their mental health, their physical health, their career in total jeopardy. So first of all, people need to have resources to be able to report the behavior and get it on people's radar. Mm-hmm. And second of all, the people who are engaging in that behavior, let's give them a chance. Let's see what can we do to fix this. But as we're talking about, when you say, people who were hurt or abused and then adopt that behavior, sometimes they're so fixated on that behavior and so convinced that they need to behave that way, or so unaware that they really are negatively affecting people, or simply don't care, they're just not going to change. And actually a continual frustration of mine that I still have, and I've been covering this stuff for a long time. Where is the mercy? Where is the compassion? Where is the like, you see that sometimes. I believe in those things. I wrote a whole chapter in my book about what should atonement and apologies and altered behavior look like? How do we start that process for people who may be wondering, how do we change? How do we create real systemic, individual, and systemic change? But if people are not willing to truly engage in the kind of sometimes radical change that they need, they should not be given these positions of authority over others. If someone was a known abuser and hired in a high school, I would have some thoughts about that as a parent. Like, we should, there have to be limits. And for a long time, Hollywood just said, well, anything goes. It has to be that way because of art. No, it doesn't have to be that way because of art. It has to be that way because some people wanted to do that and were told that taking out their difficulties on others, that was some kind of creative effort, and it's not.
Wow. Man, I could talk to you all day. And the one question I wanted to reach out to, and we only have a few minutes here or even a few seconds left, is that how about the next book? You investigate radio and the abuse that's going on in radio.
I have heard those stories, and I've seen some of the coverage. And I'll say this, a lot of creative fields, getting a position in that field is difficult. And there's a lot of gatekeeping and a lot of people who have the mentality that, quote, paying your dues should look a certain way, and it's wrong. And maybe that will be in my next book. You never know. Oh, God, I can't wait to talk to you again. Maureen, you are brilliant and you know it. And so please come back to this show anytime in the future. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. You be brilliant today, okay? I will. Thank you. I'll try.